600 million years ago was the Paleozoic Age. Huntington County was beneath a vast sea, and the coral-rich water deposited mud on the ocean floor. Over millions of years, that mud became limestone, which is an important part of Huntington County's modern history. About 200 million years ago, the waters receded, and Huntington County first became land. The last of three major glaciers receded about 14,000 years ago, and about 2,000 years later, people began moving through what is now Huntington County. These nomads of one or two family units were hunter-gatherers and hunted big game, including mastodons. Over thousands of years, the climate moderated, and people began living in small groups of about 30. The glacial Kame people lived here between 5,000 and 3,000 years ago, and today we often find their stone artifacts across our landscape. 500 to 1600 AD saw the first use of the bow and arrow, and by the late 1600s, northern Indiana was populated by several Native American tribes: the Potawatomi, Wea, Miami, and the Delaware. However, the Miami were the predominant tribe, and their descendants remain in Huntington County today. In our area, Miami villages in Allen and Miami counties were established as early as 1703, with small groups living in between. The area now known as Huntington County was primarily a hunting area for these tribes. During this time, European traders moved through the area. The Miami came in frequent contact with the French, who occasionally married Miami women. Several of these marriages produced major Miami leaders, namely Chief LaFontaine and Chief Richardville. Conflict between the Miami and European settlers led to several battles in the mid to late 1700s. Although the Miami won many encounters, the American advance into Miami land could not be stopped. At the 1795 Treaty of Greenville, the Miami ceded major portions of land which they had claimed. After losing control of their hunting lands, Chief Little Turtle met with President George Washington in 1797. The chief wanted help improving the tribe's farming methods. This led to the Quakers starting the first Indian agricultural school west of the Allegheny Mountains in 1804. Located south of the Wabash River, west of Andrews, the school sadly failed after a few years. Representing the Miami tribe, Chief Jean-Baptiste Richardville signed several treaties with the American government. 3 of those were signed at the forks of the Wabash, and because of these treaties, approximately half of the Miami tribe was moved to Kansas in 1846. Indiana became a state in 1816, and Huntington County was organized in 1834. The next year, the Wabash-Erie Canal was completed to Huntington County. The canal launched decades of strong growth throughout the county. In 1833, Warren was platted as Jonesboro, but another town of Jonesboro in nearby Grant County led to its renaming. Canal locks at Roanoke led to its founding in 1850. Roanoke became a town in 1874. Markle was laid out in 1836 on the banks of the Wabash River under the name of Tracy, but was named Markle in 1852. Andrews was platted as Antioch in 1853, but the name was changed in the 1880s in honor of a railroad official at the time when the Wabash Railroad had their headquarters on the west edge of town. The city of Huntington grew from the consolidation of the smaller communities of Drovertown, Eubie, and Huntington. The town of Huntington was founded in 1848 and became a city in 1873. In the mid-1800s, canal usage began to fade and was replaced by rail service. The Wabash Railroad first serviced Huntington in 1855, and the narrow-gauge Chicago and Atlantic Railroad was organized in 1873. In 1883, the standard-gauge Erie Railroad came to Huntington, creating a bustling economy. By 1920, an estimated 13% of Huntington's male population worked for the Erie Railroad. Many events defined our county early in the 20th century. The disastrous 1913 flood remains the most catastrophic weather event in the county's history. For weeks in late March, homes and fields along rivers and streams throughout the county were overflowing with snowmelt and heavy rain. The magnitude of this flood and the fear of future destruction led to the construction of 3 area flood control reservoirs in the 1960s. In 1912, John Knoll, who was elevated to Archbishop in 1953, founded the weekly Our Sunday Visitor as a Catholic newspaper. Through the 20th century, Our Sunday Visitor became the most popular Catholic news weekly in America, employing hundreds of writers and printers in its Huntington headquarters. Today, Our Sunday Visitor remains one of the largest printers of Catholic publications in the world. The First World War, 1914 through 1918, saw Huntington County residents involved in the war effort. Hundreds of local men saw combat, and Huntington's Helen Purviance rallied patriotic support nationwide as the face of the Salvation Army's Donut Girl. As a 17-year-old volunteer, she worked improving troop morale by delivering treats to the front lines in France. The 1918 influenza pandemic broke out near the end of World War I. The federal government issued a nationwide ban of public gatherings, and schools closed to protect children. Hundreds of residents suffered from the Spanish flu, and many did not recover. History was repeated in 2020 as more than 150 Huntington County residents passed away from COVID-19. As with the 1918 pandemic, present-day Huntington County residents exhibited strength and resilience dealing with a disruptive public health emergency. Following World War I, peace ushered in the Roaring Twenties, which was embodied by Huntington businessman J. Fred Bippus. He built the Hotel La Fontaine in downtown Huntington. The 5-story hotel attracted visitors from far and wide to enjoy its Egyptian-themed indoor swimming pool, a bowling alley, and lavishly appointed rooms. In the early 1940s, war again enveloped the world. During World War II, Huntington County native Elizabeth Smith Friedman worked as a military cryptographer. She is credited with deciphering the German Enigma code machine, which marked a major turning point in the war. Post-war growth brought a new demand for Huntington County products and ushered in new ways to get those goods to market. The federal interstate system plugged Huntington County into a national highway network. Huntington County grew 10% in the 1950s. The 1960s brought more change. State-directed school consolidation reduced the number of county high schools from 15 to 2. US 24 grew to a 4-lane highway and was moved away from downtown. The damming of the Wabash River in the name of flood control created Roush Reservoir. This reservoir is named for Huntington native J. Edward Roush, who, as a congressman, helped secure federal funding for the project. Roush was also instrumental in introducing the emergency 911 number nationwide following its debut in Huntington. The 1980s newspaper executive Dan Quayle unseated Ed Roush as the area's representative in Congress, then upset 3-term Senator Birch Bayh. In the summer of 1988, Quayle brought national attention to Huntington when he was tapped by Republican presidential candidate George H.W. Bush to be his running mate. The two launched their successful campaign at a rally on the Huntington County Courthouse steps. Dan Quayle went on to serve as Vice President of the United States. Not all of Huntington's history can be told in a few minutes, and the history of Huntington County is still being written. Huntington County's history is full of twists and turns, much like the Wabash River as it runs through the county. Fascinating and accomplished citizens, combined with a rich religious and industrial heritage, is the story of Huntington County. Learn more about Huntington County by visiting your Huntington County Historical Museum.